This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DTV Digest. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me tonight are Richard Hawes.
Hello, everyone.
And Stephen Lockridge.
Hello.
Yay. This week we've got 5 main reviews to run through. We're going to kick off with She Came from the Woods. Then we have a British psycho thriller called Cerebrum. What I believe, guys, is our first documentary in Stephen King on screen. Then we have the zombie movie Herd and Pinball, the Man Who Saved the Game. Our short shot this week is The Oath, which is a Batman fan film. And then we're going to round up in our DTV throwback with Amityville Dollhouse. So without further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is She Came from the Woods. It's the end of summer 1987 at Camp Briarbrook, and now the last of the campers are finally on their way home. The counsellors get to unwind and partake in an annual tradition of trying to summon an urban legend. However, when one of the counsellors adds an extra element to the ritual, it proves to be a deadly catalyst, bringing the camp's dark past back to life. I'm going to keep my powder dry for a second. I'm going to throw this straight over to Steve. Steve, what did you make of She Came from the Woods?
Very generic. I mean, you look on IMDb, it's listed as a horror comedy. Didn't find it particularly funny. Didn't find it particularly scary. Obviously, it's like, ripping off every other Jason film or whatever from the past, but it was just a little bit flat. There's no surprises or anything like that, or you know exactly what's coming. I think the only thing to put it in a different light was the kids, the young kids coming back.
Yeah.
And the truck breaking down and then they turning up and stuff like that. But apart from that, it was just a bit boring, to be fair. It needed something else just to punch it up. I mean, it's shot well and it's acted well. I mean, you got your typical, jock and wimpy, like jock, thinks he's harder than he is, but the one saving grace, I thought there was a couple of decent twists in there, especially with kills you didn't think would. Mm-hmm. But apart from that, it was just very, very generic, really.
Okay. Rich, what did you make of She Came from the Woods?
I've been looking forward to this one for a long time because it's based on a short film, which I thought was one of the best I'd seen. Still think it's one of the best I've seen.
It is very good. Yeah.
It's just got the perfect quality. It's decently budgeted. Properly, instantly recognizable what they're going for. It's a summer camp throwback. In the short film, it begins at that telling the campfire story kind of bit, and it's only really in the last 4 minutes that it goes like full on horror movie. But it's sort of, I don't know if they intended it as proof of concept, but that's essentially what it was. And a few years later, here we've got the feature version, which they've added things like managed to get like William Sadler on board and Cara Buono, who's probably most recognizable from Stranger Things, or that's certainly what I recognize the mostly from. The short film is it's got a bit, it is, I think, a fairly accurate translation. It's not really horror comedy. The original short, there's bits of comedy in it. This I felt had more comedy at the start, and then it kind of doesn't maintain that. And then I look at things like we watched as the throwback, You Might Be the Killer, which had a lot of comedy in it. There's a lot of very much horror comedy kind of thing. And another film, this is one of many homages to the slasher cycle. that have been coming along and are still coming along. There's more down the pike, coming. It's a period of cinema that a lot of up and coming filmmakers want to have their stab at, because they love it so much, which is fair enough. This is very well executed. I think it's a bit different because it's got kind of the witch angle, and as you guys were saying, like the kids, a bit of a Children of the Corn kind of element to it. The sort of what's her name, Agatha. Agatha is largely off screen. It's more say things like the kids and stuff that you see. I liked it. I did like it. I wanted to like it a lot more. I think the sort of tonal shifts of introducing some stuff that's very heightened, very exaggerated, like that real, douchebag character who's, he's very cartoonishly drawn. And there's he's probably the most cartoonish character, but there's a couple of cartoony characters in there, but then the overall tone of it is quite straight. So it's a bit uneven at places, but I can't really criticize that too much. I thought, I did like it. As you guys are saying, it looks really good, sounds really good. The kills are really good. It's all there, and I think the fact that it's, say, a witch rather than like a Jason Voorhees or kind of character, which a lot of these films typically have, like You Might Be the Killer or Nobody Sleeps in the Woods Tonight, the Polish films. They which is more about sort of a couple of sort of inbred cannibal type killers in that, but they're all I think this one sort of sets itself apart a little bit more because of that. The killer is more an atmospheric presence rather than a physical presence who we're constantly seeing. It's very different to Jason Voorhees, for example.
I didn't like this.
You didn't like it?
I loved it.
Oh, you loved it. You see, you faked me out there for a second.
No, I thoroughly loved this. I didn't. I mean, it is a very, I suppose, sort of generic setting, like as Steve says. The summer camp sort of slasher sort of trope is quite well worn.
But that's the point. That's what they're all going for in that. Yeah. That's the the final girls, and all that.
We had
the
final
stuff.
girls. We had Fear Street Part 2 last year, which was another really good example. I thought this worked really well. I thought the urban legend bit was really cool, and like in the shorts, when they discover that actually it was all true, there's that little bit of mystery to it, that sort of bit of discovery going on.
Yeah. I think the short is better in that part. I do think the short did it better.
Yeah,
because there's a couple of things they've changed. The cast is completely different to the short, and the tone is also a little bit different. They've added stuff to that particular scene and stuff. Like even when the woman who runs the camp comes along in the short, she's a completely different style of character to what we've got in the feature, where they've built up this mythology of this family who've been running the camp and everything. It's quite a different proposition. But I do think that campfire execution, of that scene, I was one of the best things about the short, and I don't think that quite carried into this. But that's a very very slight critique.
The first kill is brilliantly brutal. It just comes, it almost comes out of nowhere, but it's got that sort of brilliant sort of sort of watching a character in the background. Yeah, and there's a sort of little bit of inevitability. It's almost like it follows. I thought that was a really good moment. Some of the other kills are really good.
Is there a kill like the ones in the short? If you remember,
no,
if you've seen the short.
I've seen the short. No, it is different.
Yeah, because I remember that's the leeches and stuff.
Yeah,
so I thought that was really well done.
But I think,
which is great, because that's what makes them say you can watch the two different things together, and they actually don't overlap too much.
Yeah, you can almost see it as a prequel, couldn't you?
Yeah, or even if it was, it could have, if it was named a different camp.
Yeah.
It could be the same story happening in a different place or something. You could have linked it that way, but it is very much a Camp Briarbrook, and it is supposed to be the same chain of events.
There are brilliant little bits, some great sort of jump cuts, like
Mhm.
when the older brother, that the minibus breaks down, he lifts the
Mhm.
lifts the bonnet of the car, and then when he puts it down again in the same shot, all the kids are gone, and I thought that was really well done. Yeah, loads of little.
Yeah, because that's what I think. There's a lot of mystery
Yeah.
around that the whole involvement of the kids
Mm.
added something quite novel, because you don't realize what's going on at first, and it sort of adds an extra element. It's whereas the kids in, let's say, Friday the 13th Part 8, whatever it was, there are kids around, but they're there purely to be sort of terrorized, and in this they actually play a more involved role, and not just in terms of sort of swearing at the councillors and stuff like that, and to get some laughs. There's actually some
I did like the
scary scenes with them.
There was the one thing I thought, the open, that the first bit of introducing all the characters, including all the kids who are going to be part of it, it did take a long time, before things got going. But at the same time, I can appreciate it, because when stuff does happen, you're going, oh, a little bit more about the characters, even the kids, sort of what happens to them, which I thought was very well done. The sort of bleached blonde douchey guy, I kind of had him pegged as being like a closeted gay guy. He just seems like too alpha, as he's putting on a persona sort of thing. But I did like what an asshole he was. Yeah, he does a Burke at one point, which I thought was quite sad but funny at the same time. But yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I thought it was very, very good. And looking at what's his name, Blomqvist,
yeah.
But,
Eric Blomqvist.
Yeah, Eric Blomqvist. And looking at his filmography, and I'm sort of like going, why haven't I seen any of these films? I'm definitely gonna have to sort of work my way through some of them. Hopefully they're not shit. But I'm very curious that a sort of filmmaker of this stature has sort of passed me by, and definitely want us to go and sort of check out some of his other films.
Yeah, he makes them with his brother Carson. They're sort of, I think Carson's producing and co-writing on this. In the original short, it was credited to both the brothers, and this one, Eric's got the thing. I will say, stick around for the end credits, because there's an end credits sequence which is really nicely put together.
Right at the end. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this. And how are we going to score it, Steve?
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
I will give it a 7.
I'm going to trump both of you with an 8. So that is a 6, a 7, and an 8 for She Came from the Woods. We heartily recommend you go check it out, except Steve. But there you go. Our next review is Cerebrum. After spending a year in a coma, William finally wakes up and is brought home by his emotionally distant father, who tells him that his mother wants to keep her distant. However, as he slowly recovers, William is confronted with some dark truths about his accident and his father's current experiments. I think for me, Rich, the most surprising thing about this film is that it's British. It doesn't feel like, I mean,
well, it's Swiss. It's like
really?
it's like a Swiss co-production.
Okay.
The director is the writer and director, I believe, is a Swiss filmmaker, Sebastian Blanc. So it does have this kind of mixture, I think, of it does feel very British, but it also feels not quite so British. It doesn't feel.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Especially with the father
European sensibility, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, you know, now you say that, yeah, there's that sort of Swiss influence to it. That does sort of make sense with the, you know, William's father. He's sort of very sort of buttoned up, but he has these sort of outbursts, doesn't he? As he when he thinks he's alone and things like that. It's very interesting. I really enjoyed this. I you know, knew nothing about it going in. I wasn't quite sure early on when you get like, you know, sort of ghostly apparitions and things going on. You're not sure what's really happening. But it sort of settles down into this sort of interesting sort of concept. And it sort of basically boils down to like mad scientist syndrome, which, you know, and I think it's done really, really well overall. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I did like it. It is, like you say, it does explore some. It's quite psychological, but also quite literal. There's you're not quite sure where you stand for the first part, and then sort of, you know, things become a bit more revealed later on. But there's a lot going on with the psychology of the lead character, you know, and the fact that he's been through this traumatic experience, so he's having hallucinations and things like that. And then there's the element of you're not quite sure. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, but his father seems to be sharing those hallucinations, which is like really weird, you know.
Well, that's what the thing was I wasn't sure whether he'd actually left the hospital, if you see what I mean. It's like how much of this is in his head is kind of where I was thinking of it for a long time. And it's like how much is literal and how much is like purely like in his imagination. And it comments with things like with flashbacks and stuff to sort of explore what actually happened. And, you know, the guilt that he's feeling about that. There's a certain amount of stuff that's open to interpretation, but then I think you get to a certain point where it's not. Everything's much more literal.
I toyed with that idea as well, but I think if it was going down that route, there would have been signposts. You know, they'd have had to throw you a few clues to try and clue you, you know, to try and help you come to that conclusion, but it didn't. It played this, you know, it played it relatively straight. So after a while I thought, well, no, by now I should have seen something which would have, you know, helped me get you know, jump to that conclusion, but there isn't. So yeah, it was quite
when I was watching it, because of the style of the film that it is, it's very it's low budget, but it's very real world, domesticated. It's got a situation, small cast, and obviously the British setting and stuff. And it really reminded me of a film that we talked about, I think it's a couple of years ago now, called Repeat, which was a science fiction story.
It was,
about time travel, and it was a mystery and stuff like that. And I think there's comparable elements in this to that, you know. And I did think that was really good, by the way. Repeat, if nobody's seen it, is on Prime.
It was one of our films of the year.
Was that the one with Charlotte Ritchie in?
Yes, it was.
Yes, I was cracking that.
Yes, so I sort of that was the film. This doesn't remind you of many or didn't remind me of many things. It was quite distinctive in what it was going for, but I think Repeat did the same thing. You know, it's kind of venturing down sort of very sort of some quite conventional, you know, sci-fi, or in this case a little bit horror sort of tropes, but it just feels different. Feels a bit more of an organic kind of thing, and it's a bit more novel, but stands out from the crowd, I think. And I don't think this is as good as Repeat, but I do think it's very interesting.
I think, because it is a smaller cast, this one, so they're having to carry a lot more of what happens, you know, and especially since our protagonist William, I think for like the first half of the film, he can't speak as well, which, you know, it just makes it that much more harder to sort of convey what's sort of going on. But I thought this was very, very good, quite original. Not you know, I mean, when you get to the end, it's like, okay, you know, there are definite sort of classic storylines being used here, but you know, getting there was very good, and I love that sort of ending as well. That sort of the irony that sort of drips from that final bit. I thought was very good. So, anything else to add on that one, Rich?
No, I think there was a film that another film that reminded me of in certain elements, but if I said what that was, it would spoil it. So I'm not going to say what that was. But I'd say, you know, go in knowing as little as possible is the best thing for any film, any sort of film like this, really. So
Yeah.
I'd say there's some solid performances here from a cast I'm not familiar with. It's very much an unknown quantity. But yeah, give it a chance. I
Absolutely.
think people will be interested.
And on that note, Rich, how are you going to score it?
I'm going to give this a 7 as well.
Yeah, I'm going to join you on a 7 for this one. So that's 2 7s for Cerebrum. Go check it out. Our next review is Stephen King on Screen. This is a documentary featuring the filmmakers who have brought Stephen King's works to the screen. Chief among them being Frank Darabont. Get it out eventually. Put my teeth back in. He of Shawshank and The Mist, of course. But we've also got Mike Flanagan, who did Doctor Sleep and a couple of others as well. Gerald's Game was one of the others, wasn't it? Yeah, so it starts off with a nice sort of vignette as well, doesn't it? It's sort of little scene.
It's like a short film, basically.
It's almost like a short film, yeah. Where they sort of like drop some, loads of references to bits of Stephen King's works, which I thought.
Apparently, there's like 300.
Really? What? 300 clues?
Apparently, there's like 300 references.
Oh my word!
In that sort of wraparound, yeah.
God, yeah. No, that was quite interesting itself. I did feel, once that bit finished, and it was introducing sort of the various people who are going to be talking through the thing, it did get a bit lovey-dovey for a bit. They were gushing over Stephen King for a bit, and it sort of settled down. They started talking about individual films, and I got into that bit. But at the beginning, I was thinking, oh, this is a wank fest. Yeah, it really is. But when they actually started talking about the films themselves, and like Frank Darabont, for example, talking about Shawshank, and then what surprised me as well was Craig R. Baxley had directed a couple as well. I'd never actually seen Storm of the Century, and now I'm like, I want to see this. I also thought it was a bit of a weird one because that was a mini-series, I believe, wasn't it? Storm of the Century.
And I think that one was not an adaptation. Like that's one that King wrote specifically for television, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Which he has done occasionally. There's a mention of a couple in here where he's like he just wrote it as a film or wrote it as a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
There was some in there which I must admit I've not heard of, and as we know, Stephen King does sort of allow people to adapt his works, especially his short stories. So I mean, we know Alice Mayer McKay picked one up, for example, which was interesting. But yeah, I mean, as a sort of primer for for King's work, I thought this was actually quite interesting, sort of seeing how stuff's brought to the screen. Steve, did you like this one?
Yeah, it was good. I'll be honest, I mean, I was a big King fan when I was younger. Read quite a lot.
I've only read one story by Stephen King, and that was Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption.
Okay.
Which was part of the something seasons book. It was like 4 novellas.
Yeah, I'm trying to think which one it was.
It had the body in it, which was the Stand By Me story as well, which I never actually bothered to read. I just read that one. I thought
different seasons, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's
seasons.
it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah. I have read it. Like I say, it was years ago, but no, it was interesting. I mean, I'll be honest. At first, when I put it on, and that, the little vignette at the beginning, I was like, "Is this? What is it?"
It would be an interesting idea, wouldn't it? It would be an interesting idea if they did the whole film like that. That would be quite weird.
Well, they've done Castle Rock, didn't they? The series.
That's right.
I started, but didn't really get into it. But no, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, a lot of it. If you're a King fan, it's not. I don't think there's anything really new in there. Even like the Darabont interviews and stuff like that, it's all kind of been said before, and I've read about it before, stuff like that. But it is decent, passing the time well. It's interesting. I wouldn't say it's a mind-blowing, behind the scenes documentary, but it's decent. It was an hour and a half. not wasted. You know what I mean? It was decent.
Yeah, I agree. How do you get on with this one, Rich?
I liked it. It is very straightforward. It doesn't have the sort of pizzazz of like a, like the films being made by the team that did like Corman's World and Not Just Hollywood and Electric Boogaloo, The Untold Story, Wild Story, Canon Films, the Canon Films documentary, stuff like that. I mean, I love any film or other films like Iron Fists and Kung Fu Kicks and stuff like that. So I love a film. I love documentaries about movies. I thought this one was very straight down the middle, not really anything particularly. Not that I didn't like it, I did like it, but apart from that opening, which is really interesting, they did that. It is very straightforward. Here's an interview, here's a clip, here's some behind the scenes, and it's structured very, typically, here's like a 10-15 minute segment on The Shining. Here's a 10-15 minutes on The Shawshank Redemption. I would have liked to have seen it sort of delve a bit deeper into some of the more obscure. I mean, they don't really mention how many adaptations there have been. I know they represent a cross section because feature films and TV and stuff. But I would have liked to have sort of had a whole bit about the Children of the Corn and how we ended up with like 15 of those and things like that. Because the sheer scale, I mean, how much money he must get from the rights to his films alone. He must have an extraordinary amount of money. He must be the most adapted writer ever. I mean, he's probably been adapted more times than Shakespeare or the Bible.
As far as I'm aware, what he does is, if someone comes to him, he sells the movie rights for $1.
I think that. Well, the thing, I think he does that with like short filmmakers, people who are trying to, but there's certain caveats attached to that. If it was a bigger project or whatever, I don't think that would be the case.
Maybe not. Maybe, I've definitely heard that.
Yeah.
But
I'm pretty sure he didn't do that with Dr. Sleep, for example.
But the Dr. Sleep actually part's really interesting because they do a whole thing about which pretty much every Stephen King fan would know that that Stephen King hated the Stanley Kubrick adaptation. There's an interesting discussion about that and how personal the book was to him and how Kubrick took it in a completely direction and stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. But then they made Dr. Sleep, which was both trying to be a faithful adaptation of a King book, but also he was saying I can't do it. He was saying I can't do it differently because that is what people think of. I mean, I know he did the TV miniseries that they go into, but he said that's the thing people know. The Kubrick movie is what people know, so I have to reference that. So he was walking a tightrope. It was really interesting to hear him talk about that, Mike Flanagan. They say they dwell on a lot of the stuff that it's the Shawshank and stuff. It's nice that they did a little bit on The Mist, which is kind of one of the ones that didn't do well. That was like the third one I think that Darabont did, and it wasn't a hit, but that ending is just insanely memorable. Devastating ending. And then of course it's become a TV series now. There were all of these things. They didn't do anything on Maximum Overdrive, which I would have liked to have seen.
Also Sleepwalkers as well.
Yeah, there are so many. I mean, there's been so they had to be selective. I mean, really, it would have been nice if this was like a 3-hour documentary. They could have gone into a lot more. This is hour and 45 minutes, something like that. And say it's fine, especially for the uninitiated or the people who don't know very much. But I would have liked to have seen it really sort of delve in a bit more. We get some good interviews. So I say we've got Flanagan, we've got Mike Garris,
as well.
Mike Garris and Craig Baxley and Tom. Oh God, is it Holland? I'm thinking Tom Holland, but it's not. It is Tom Holland. Yeah, it's same name. Tom Holland. Yeah, it's on Tom Holland.
Yeah.
Mark
and the guy, Garris, sorry. The guy who does the Creepshow TV series as well. Can't remember his name.
Yes, Nicotero, wasn't it? Greg Nicotero, wasn't it?
That's Nicotero. That's it.
And then Vincenzo Natali, who did Cube, he's in there. Taylor Hackford, loads of people. Interestingly, though, not Stephen King himself. So it's got kind of a posthumous kind of feel to it, but he's very much alive. So I think there was a conscious decision there to not interview King himself, because then it would be about what King thinks of his own films or the adaptations of his films, rather than the filmmakers, which is what I think the angle here was.
Exactly.
That they wanted to sort of keep the focus off King. So King is nowhere to be found except for some archive footage.
There is
and some like interview scenes.
There is an interesting bit of sort of internet sort of rumors that they sort of skirt around a bit. They do sort of circle it, and that is his wife. And it is rumored, it is very strongly rumored, that she actually ghost wrote the sort of more female centric books that he did, like Dolores Claiborne and Misery and Rose Red and things like that. Never been proven, never been confirmed or denied, but is there? And in this sort of documentary, they skirt around it a bit. You know, they come close. They sort of say how much of an influence she's been and all the rest of it. You know, being a strong female character, but nobody actually dares sort of make any sort of aspersions towards it. But it is one of those sort of perennial sort of internet rumors.
That's interesting.
But
the thing is, he's always written female characters. I mean, they go into that a lot in the film, like Carrie and stuff.
Carrie,
what would you say? What would you say was the worst King adaptation that you've seen?
I probably can't even think of it at the moment because I can't.
Honestly, I'd probably say the original Stand miniseries.
All right.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
One with Molly Ringwald and Eric Stoltz in that one, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah. And Rob Lowe.
That's it. Rob Lowe, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in that. I mean, to be fair, it's probably about 25 years since I've seen it, but
for me, well, the worst thing I've seen with his name attached to it was the Langoliers.
See, I like that. I love that name.
Yeah.
I've read it, so
it's just a really crappy. Yeah, it's the crappy Malteser. These sort of CGI Maltesers eating everything.
Yeah.
Oh, dreadful. But
having said that, Tommy Knockers wasn't great neither.
No, Tommy Knockers.
Well, that was another TV miniseries, wasn't it?
Yeah. No. It was a miniseries. Tommy Knockers.
Yeah, I think it was, and they released it as like a 3-hour video.
Jimmy Smith's, wasn't it?
Jimmy Smith's, yeah.
Oh, Dreamcatcher.
I'm just trying to have a look through the. I mean, I haven't seen Cell, but I'd heard that was pretty rubbish.
Yeah,
they talk about Cell.
That was a bit shit, to be fair.
Yeah.
But here's another thing. I would have liked to have, if they'd have talked about like some of these short films or whatever, that would have been good. Or like the unofficial adaptations. Like there's like a Bollywood, an Indian version of the story, which was in Cat's Eye, which was the one about smoking with Quitter's Inc.
Oh yeah.
So Quitter's Inc. was adapted for Cat's Eye with James Woods, and then there was an Indian movie which was based, like a 2-hour movie. On that premise, which was really quite an interesting movie. I would love to have seen them explore like stuff like that rather than just going talking about all the stuff that we're more familiar with. But I'm just having to flip. I mean, he's got like there's over like 300 adaptations, and there's like 20 on the way. It's like we're not short of King stuff going around. There's a lot of shorts in there, but there's also
Thing is, I think for every good one, there's probably at least 2 crap ones.
Yeah.
Things like, I mean, have you seen Dreamcatcher, for example?
See, I like Dreamcatcher.
I liked it when I first saw it, but it's just crazy. It is.
I've tried reading or listening to many Stephen King stories. He's kind of a writer that I've always really wanted to like, but I've kind of never quite clicked with his work. So I used to buy a lot of the books when I was a kid. I did read at least some of Dolores Claiborne, for example, and I had copies. I had like Christine and stuff, but I don't think I ever read it. I think I was a bit put off by how long it was. But I love Christine's probably my favorite adaptation because I love that film.
Yeah, I love that.
But but I've never. Yeah, I'm interested in Stephen King, the writer, but not necessarily in his writing. So, like for example, his book On Writing, is really interesting, where he talks about his process and stuff. There's a book he did called Dance Macabre, which is like a history of like Pulp Fiction horror and stuff like that, which is really so. It's non-fiction stuff that he's done. Yeah. I've probably engaged with more than his fiction, but I've tried to give stuff a go, like Hearts in Atlantis, From a Buick 8, things like that. But yeah, not so much, unfortunately. There's certain films of his that are explored here that I'd really love to see, like The Dark Half, which I've never properly seen. And they didn't talk about. See, here would have been a good story. The Lawnmower Man. They didn't talk about the Lawnmower Man, which is a really interesting story because he basically, they basically took the title, and the film has nothing to do with it. But and then he sued to have his credit taken off, but he still got all the money for it. so he got away with loads of money for the film, which ended up not.
So basically,
moderate.
He got all this money just for coming up with the title, basically.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't adapt the story, but they were going to, because they changed it so much. They were just trying to exploit his name. Yeah, and ultimately, I think that everybody knew that anyway because it became such a big story that the film ended up benefiting from that association anyway. But I think it ended up being quite a modest hit. I mean, it was very popular, sort of known at the time, wasn't it? The VR thing and everything. It's a good movie. Pierce Brosnan,
Jeff Fahey. Yeah,
it's a good spin on sort of the Frankenstein story. But if you read, which I've read or listened, I can't remember if I listened to it or read it, but the original story, nothing like it. It's like it couldn't be more different. It's like about this. I don't know. I can't even describe it. It's like this really weird little story. Anyway, but it was kind of the 90s, all that sort of stuff kicking in. It was 1990. They talk about that a bit. But The Running Man, wouldn't that have been great if they'd talked about The Running Man, which they do a reference to, but they don't talk about.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
It's
they don't talk about the Richard
opening.
Buckman stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, let's get back to the actual documentary. Steve, how are you going to score Stephen King on screen?
I'll give it a 7.
I think this is a solid 7. And Rich?
Yeah, I think despite my misgivings, it's a very solidly made, watchable documentary. Definitely worth a 7.
Yeah, absolutely. So 3 7s for Stephen King on screen. Go check it out. Our next review is Herd. Alex and Jamie are 2 women who are trying to outrun their past when they are caught in the middle of a zombie-like outbreak and warring militia groups. This is a well-made film, which is treading a well-trod path. It has some interesting spins, admittedly, but there's not a lot here we haven't seen before. The things we haven't seen before, though, I did like. There are definite. What's what I'm looking for? Sort of metaphors for COVID in this film, and it's almost like if you take lockdown and extrapolate it to the apocalypse, to an apocalyptic level, that's kind of like where we are with this film. This isn't like trying to get the last toilet roll out of Sainsbury's. This is like people sort of gearing up with weapons and stuff to get hold of supplies and things. And it does ask the question, like, what's more likely to kill you, the zombie-like virus or the zombies themselves, or just being around these fucking lunatics with guns, basically. Because some of them are reveling in the situation, aren't they? They are seriously cosplaying their wettest dreams in this. There's one particular guy who's like, I don't know, sort of second in command of this group that the women find themselves hanging out with, and they're being attacked by this other group of sort of more militarized sort of militia. And this guy's going, I want to be at the front so I can sort of help you shoot these guys. And go, yeah, but you're supposed to be at the back, sort of protecting the back door. And he's like, oh no, I've got that covered. And you find out he's left this 5-year-old kid with a full rifle, with a full-size rifle to protect the back door. And then they have a go at him. They have a go at the kid for not doing anything when they break in. I thought, oh my God. There was a lot to like here, I must admit. How do you go on with this one, Steve?
It just reminded me of like a couple of episodes of The Walking Dead slapped together.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, the beginning where they're on the camping trip and the kayaking and stuff, I thought that was really well shot.
Yep.
And then also, you've obviously got the homophobia coming to the fore with a dad.
Yeah.
And his reactions and stuff like that, and where it places them in the compound and stuff like that with the society that they've got there. But it just again felt a little bit flat. It's again something that we've seen before. There's nothing really new there. It just dragged a little bit for me. I mean, there's some decent stuff in there. I mean, where I thought that the homophobia bit I thought was done really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that kind of baffled me was like the time frame on it.
Yeah.
Because if I remember rightly,
I think it's like a week or something, isn't it? Is that like a week,
maybe
2 weeks at the most? Yeah.
And I just didn't get that they become so militarized, or in the course of a week. It's a bit quick.
This is America we're talking about. And, and the thing is, it's the American Midwest as well, isn't it? It's like it's not like New York or Los Angeles or something. It's like definite sort of like MAGA country that we're dealing with. And there's that conversation at the end when she overhears them, and the way they're talking. It's like, oh my God, this is like real sort of oath keeper shit. It really, Proud Boys and all that. It's like, oh my God, yeah, you could certainly see it. You could certainly see it happening. Whereas in England, okay, people might slap you around a bit, or sort of like to snatch the last bog roll or something. But I say, but nothing to that extreme. Yeah, I mean, you get idiots in America who will, they'll kill someone because they lost a basketball game. Sort of stuff like that. So, yeah, I can certainly see it, and I could certainly see, the preppers and all the rest of it sort of acting up. And it kind of reminded me as well of the ending of Shaun of the Dead. To that extent, there's a certain normalcy coming back, but at the same time, these people are sort of like they've been, their attitudes have been weaponized. You see what I mean? They've sort of got this sort of bravado.
Yeah.
But anyway, Rich, how do you get on with Herd?
I liked it a lot. It's got a very gripping opening with Corbin Bernsen dealing with an attack, and as soon as I was gripped from that opening scene, I could see it was really well made, well shot. Corbin Bernsen, and actually in a a decent role for a change. I didn't expect we were going to see a lot of him, but I thought it was the best thing I've seen him do for a while. And we develop this. We find ourselves with these characters, this couple, and they're on their way on a trip, and then there's sort of signs of stuff in the background or whatever, that things are going a bit wrong, and they're sort of going into dodgy territory. I think it very much carries on what George Romero was doing in the original Night of the Living Dead, it's very socio-political.
Mm-hmm.
All the stuff with the hunters, as you know, whatever we want to call them, the people who are going down to sort of shoot the zombies, we'll call them, because they're basically zombies, but as you were saying, this is another sort of 28 days later sort of virus kind of situation. But it's zombies, or for want of a better word. I can definitely, I've not watched The Walking Dead, but I can definitely see why it would be likened to The Walking Dead. I think it's impossible not to. There's so many of these stories now. It's set in that kind of situation, and that's probably the most well known at the moment. But I think it does go back to Night of the Living Dead and what he was doing in that. I mean, in that movie, you had a black leading character, and there's not militia, I don't know what's it called, the sort of groups going around trying to take them out, and there's an emphasis on that. And like you were saying, there's sort of this enjoyment that they seem to be having about what they're doing, and I think this film carries that through. It's dwelling on those same kind of characters, and also dealing with a situation which is equally sort of transgressive to those people. That they in the 60s, having this African American character trying to boss everyone around, whatever wasn't taken particularly well, and in this case we've got a couple, I don't know how much we want to say about it, but we've got a couple of characters who in themselves are not the most accepted, so therefore there's a sort of an element of risk there about what might happen to them because of who they are. The film didn't quite go in the direction that I was thinking it was going to. I thought with the title Herd and stuff, and I thought that there was going to be more sort of turning on each other kind of stuff happening, but it doesn't quite pan out.
It really only comes in right at the end, doesn't it? So there's a revelation right towards the end, where there's a bleakest moment when suddenly it humanizes the zombies in a way you don't expect, which I thought was quite interesting. I thought the zombie.
Well, that's the thing here. I mean, this is another zombie movie where the zombies are not actually the main threat. It's kind of that. Yes, it's that exactly. Same theme of that. We are the real monsters or whatever. It's us, not the thing that's making the thing that's getting us all worried is not the main thing. That's the danger. We're the danger kind of thing. But it doesn't dwell on that too much. It doesn't do too much with that, which is fine because that's something that's been quite heavily explored in the past and whatever. So I didn't mind that. But there is this emphasis on say the militia versus this. I presume their government. Types, because they've got all these resources. They're led by Timothy Murphy, who we've seen in a couple of things like I can't remember what it was, American Siege and stuff like that. Or he's kind of a Ed Harris type, I would say. Yes, and he's just really it's they lay their cards on the table with what kind of character he is quite soon. So you've got like the bad and the worst kind of thing. It's like between that, and this is kind of what some of the later films sort of dwells on, these kind of action moments and stuff, which are all very well done. But there's a lot going on with the central character and her backstory and all the stuff with Corbin Bernsen, basically, because there's this real sort of tug in different directions, because we know from the testimonies of the other characters that the character that Corbin Bernsen plays is much admired. They their lives to him and all that sort of stuff. But at the same time, there's this this hidden part of it. I don't think it's even so hidden, but maybe just not noticed or just ignored. Of the way he's treated his family, and that is the big weight that the main character carries. And there's a certain arc that she has to go through with that in order, both trying to come to terms with what happened and sort of re-encountering her past, coming back to where she came from and everything, but also dealing with the fact that people do owe their lives to him. It's like, it's really awkward sort of situation. But so quite an I'm trying to think, kind of complex character, and we don't actually spend a lot of time with him. It's like a couple of scenes, and then it's what other people think of him or remember of him or say about him. So we're not able to draw any particular conclusions apart from seeing some of his more heinous actions and whatever. So you're very, I think, in my side, you're very much, you see him as like this unredeemable character. But somebody else might say, well, there was that, but there was this other thing. And I think there's situations like that in real life where you can put that, say, well, somebody did this really, really awful thing, but they also did this really, really good thing. And that makes me feel very conflicted. And I don't know quite what to do with that. In a sense, that's kind of what the main character is dealing with, although it's mostly trauma.
This is directed by Stephen Pierce, and I believe this is his first feature film. Done a lot of TV stuff, done quite a few shorts, but I believe this is his first feature. And I think he's done a bang-up job, to be quite honest. I mean, he's chosen a relatively straightforward sort of genre to work in for this, but as I said, I did like this sort of the allegory to COVID and things like that. I thought that worked really well, especially at the end, when it's like, oh, okay, let's kind of move on, forget about all that's happened. I thought this was pretty solid. Steve, what are you going to score it?
I'll give it a 6.
And Rich?
I'm gonna give it an 8. I think I really, really liked it.
Okay, I'm giving it a 7. So a 6, a 7, and an 8, just like we had with She Came from the Woods. Go check it out. Our next review is Pinball, the Man Who Saved the Game. This is the story of Roger Sharp, the young Midwesterner who overturned New York City's 35-year ban on pinball machines. Steve, over to you. What do you make of Pinball?
Now, when I saw this, I really, really didn't fancy it. It just seems to be, on this trend at the minute with like Air and BlackBerry, where they're just like talking about
Tetris, whatever. Yeah,
Tetris, stuff like that. It's a marketing ploy or shoe deal and stuff like that. I just thought, no, I can't be asked for this. I really, really didn't fancy it at all. Didn't want to watch it. I thought, right, okay, I'll crack on with it. And I absolutely loved it. There's a charm about the character. To be fair, it's more about him, getting together with, falling in love and stuff like that, and writing a book about it, about pinball, because it's one of them. He's just kind of obsessed with it. It's like the only thing he's good at in his life, and trying to become a writer and stuff like that. And it's just so charming, so quaint. And one thing I did like about it is, it kind of like starts off as an interview, and how he is now, and then goes back to the story. But then he keeps popping up. Well, no, this is how it happened. This is how it happened, and this is what we were doing, and this is what we weren't doing, and stuff like that. And I just really, really enjoyed it. I got really engrossed in it. I thought it was done really well. All the performances were really good, especially like the guys he was interviewing who created pinball and stuff. And it, to be fair, I mean, it seems so weird that something like this was banned for so long.
Now, it's interesting you say that, because from what I understand, it was banned because it was considered to be a game of chance.
Well, yeah.
In which case it makes it basically a gambling machine rather than something where skill is involved. And I believe in the UK, there was a similar case brought to, I think it was darts. It's something like pub darts or something, where they tried to ban it, saying no, it's a game of chance, and they had to sort of prove no, you need skill to actually sort of win, which is what happens in pinball as well, I believe.
Yeah, it does. But yeah, absolutely loved it.
Rich, over to you.
Yeah, you've missed a treat, Mike. This is really, well, I think this is one of my favorite films of the year. As Steve was saying, it's charming. The whole film is charm. It's just, it oozes charm. It's such a charming film. It's really likable. It's the character, it's the way it's made, it's the sort of humor and stuff that goes through it. It's as probably appropriate for the kind of subject matter. It is a very playful film, so it's playing with the conventions and the artistic license that gets taken with life stories and stuff. So you're spending time, say, initially on these like interview scenes with the elder Roger Sharp, who's played by Dennis Boutsikaris, who I couldn't place when I was watching it, but then I looked up, he was in stuff like Batteries Not Included. So I sort of picked him up, but he's great, and he's very sort of got this dry humor that he's doing through the movie, and they're like, and like Steve was saying, there's a lot of emphasis on the love story, and it's kind of it's one thing that movies do that, they was like, oh, let's focus on the human story or whatever and develop that, but it's all about what Roger wants to tell that story, and the filmmakers keep sort of interjecting and saying, but when are we going to get to the pinball? when are we going to get to the fireworks factory? So it's a very, very formulaic kind of biopic story, triumph over the odds kind of thing that happens, and we introduced to this young guy with this crazy moustache, and the love story stuff is say what we spend about half the time on. It's great, and you're really rooting for them. They're such nice characters, really well, nicely drawn, played by Mike Faced and Crystal Reed, who's playing Ellen, who's his partner, who's she's been in stuff like Gotham, Swamp Thing, and Teen Wolf. So she's probably got the higher profile out of the two. And Mike Faced, I couldn't really find much of him, but I didn't know any of the actors apart from, say, a passing recognition of the guy playing the elder Sharp. But they do this stuff like, they're telling the story, and then they're sort of like Steve was saying, there's almost like they rewind and say, actually, that didn't happen. It's like it actually went more like this and stuff like that. Or he's in the scene and he's like commenting on stuff. He's actually sitting in the scene. So 1 minute he's being interviewed, so he's sitting in a black background, but the next minute he's talking about what's happening, and he's sitting on the set.
Kind of like the Craze film that we saw, Code of Silence.
Could be, I can't remember, but I have seen that device used.
He's in this flashback sort of thing. Yeah. So it's that kind of thing, and he's also at times he then interacts with people in his story. It's like somebody passed him a drink or whatever it is anyway. But it's like there's playful little stuff happening, and the story is so interesting because I had no idea about it, and it's really well told. It's fascinating, really. And they go into the history of it and like why did that happen, and the task that he's got, which ends up being sort of like a little thing really at the end, but it has like this big impact. But it's more about drawing the characters and sort of telling the sort of long game story of it, and how much he loves the pinball machines and stuff. And so it's almost documentary at times, which is great, which is nice. I would actually like to see a documentary version of this. I think that would be just as interesting. I could certainly see someone like Netflix making that. So it's probably only a matter, because like you say, there's so many both dramas and documentaries about these sort of random sort of side stories or funny little quirks or about products or whatever it is. Like we've had The Founder with Michael Keaton and all, and like I say, I think The Social Network started a lot of this stuff.
You know, it's like let's take this thing that you know of, you know, in your daily life, and we're going to tell a story around it or whatever. That's kind of a more, you know, prestige example, and Air being another prestige example. But then you've got, say, films like this. I love this is great. I mean, you will not regret sitting down and spending like an hour and a half with these characters.
Awesome. On that note, guys, how are you going to score it? Steve?
I'm going to give it an 8.
And Rich?
I'm going to give it an 8 as well.
Awesome. 2 8s for Pinball, the man who saved the game. Go check it out. Our short shot this week is The Oath. This is a Batman fan film about a Gotham police sergeant who has a crisis of conscience in a dark alley one night. This is very much stylized along the lines of Tim Burton's original Batman, not so much the sequel. It's got a nice score going for it. It's got a great aesthetic, really good costumes. It has to be said. You know, the Gotham PD costume with the sort of leather coats and things. It looks very much like you know, the costumes used in Burton's film. And it's a pretty decent little story overall. I mean, some of the, you know, the action bit doesn't quite work, but other than that, I think it's pretty solid. The only thing is the sort of bit at the end, and the guy just seems too unemotional with what happens.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
But other than that, I thought this certainly looked great. I have to say, Steve, how did you get on with this?
Yeah, I was impressed with how good it looks. I enjoyed it. One thing that got me was, as it's coming through, I'm sure that some of the scenes, like the dialogue, was lifted directly from.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Batman. Yeah, it wasn't just me then thinking that.
No, there's the whole film is full of references, both, you know, spoken and sort of background or details or whatever to the 1989 film.
It's in that universe, isn't it? Because
they're very much
they
on the nose,
Eckhart, don't they? And,
Grissom and
Grissom. It
was.
Go on,
sorry.
No, I was going to say, Grissom was sort of Jack Palance's character, wasn't he?
That's right.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed it. Like I said, that little bit at the end was a bit, but apart from that, I thought it was great.
You know, that ending, do you remember on the Fast Show? When it used to be that character who, you know, you just be like making a cup of tea or something, and he'll say something like, and then we won the lottery.
Which was nice.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of that.
Yeah.
all these cool things happen. It's like, okay, everything's fine. Just thought it was like, surely, but maybe he was sort of balancing it with his guilt, you know, sort of what almost didn't happen, sort of thing. So maybe, but even so. And then Wayne Foundation gave me a blank check, which was nice.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I thought this was pretty solid. Written and directed by Rich.
Johnny Kay.
Yeah, I thought this was really well done. Very, you know, great production values, let's say. It's just that little bit of kerfuffle. You know, there's no real sort of choreography or anything to it. It's just
I like the kerfuffle. I was happy with the kerfuffle.
All right.
Apparently, when he does the bat fist,
you
know, the sort of, which is probably the most recognizable reference to the to the film. He did actually hit him in the face. So there's a making of bit that shows that. Yeah, he didn't, and the guy who he hit didn't break character. He was like, he was like, I'm prepared for it. If it happens, I'm just going to go with it. And he did it. But it was the guy playing Batman who didn't know. And he broke character because he was like, oh my God, I didn't mean to hit you, kind of thing. But I thought that stuff worked nice. I mean, there's lots of it's I think it's sort of prequel early part of the Tim Burton movie that this is kind of set at. I do think on the limited budget they did an excellent job of matching the aesthetic of the Burton film.
There's a bit of
there's a
like
nice.
there's a bit of like the animated series in there as well, isn't there? It's there's a few scenes the way it's lit. It does come across like the animated series,
which itself was very drawn from influenced by what Burton started doing. I think, although that in turn was sort of based on, I don't know if it was it the Frank Miller work that he was pulling from. So I'm not sure. I'm not very up on all that, but I thought there's the shot framing and stuff, and there's a bit near the start where he's kind of walking through, and there's stuff like in the foreground, like big cogs and stuff. And you're actually looking through these things. There's some, which is all sort of feels quite organic to that sort of Tim Burton version of the story. Batman himself is basically a cameo, so it, as you're saying, it's very much based on this sort of other character encountering Batman, but it's more about his story, which is fine, and I think that's a good way to go about it. The whole moral dilemma thing, and there's some good foreshadowing and stuff about that. He's having conversations, and he's like, they're talking about how he's the righteous one, but then he's like pocketing some cigarettes off of a victim and stuff like that. And you're like, well, there's something not 100% about this character, and they do that quite nicely. They do things like they incorporate the recognizable batarang and stuff from the movie, and that as well. Like they're not like necessarily the original props, but or replicas or whatever. So that all adds to it. And unfortunately, the car's not in it. I do need to stress that there have been Batman fan films which have featured the replica of the Batmobile, but this is very much a small scale kind of story. It's all set around, or mostly set around the outside of a sort of an industrial, but there's not even room to park a car really in that particular area that they will be. But the whole point is, it's that horror Batman. It's the early part of Tim Burton's film where the Batman is like this thing to be feared, which also Christopher Nolan sort of incorporated as well in the early parts of Batman Begins, was making him something that was a monster that people were scared of, and stuff, and they were like, oh, this can't be real. You don't talk crazy, don't talk about bats and stuff. And it's like but I thought that was all very well done, and I do wish they hadn't been so on the nose with some of the dialogues. They literally saying things that are exactly the same as in the movie, because that sort of took me out of it. So I was thinking, well, that would never happen. There's no chance that those two people would end up saying exactly the same thing. I want to feel that these things are connected, and that sort of took me out of it. But I did think it was good quality. I mean, we've seen a lot of Batman shorts, and I think with the recent release of The Flash and that film's own references to the 1989 Batman, I thought this was quite an apt one to look at. It came out tail end of last year,
right?
But if you're interested in the Batman, the older versions of the Batman and stuff, I think this would be an interesting sort of, not companion piece to the Flash, but to sort of explore other aspects of that. There's actually I'll just give another reference to another short film. I think it's called Flashpoint, which has got I think it's called Flashpoint Part 1, which came out quite recently. It's like the setup. It's a short. It's a short that's like the first of a potential series, but it's got a very different kind of take on Batman. Which I hadn't seen before. I'm not familiar with the Flashpoint paradox and all that sort of stuff. So it came out left field. And I think the Flashpoint was an influence on the Flash as well, to a degree. I haven't seen it, so I can't say, but I've heard that there's elements of the Flashpoint stuff in there. So that could be another one that people might want to sort of have a little Google to find, because that's a very different interpretation of who the Batman character is, let's say.
Cool. Well, we don't score the shorts, but we do recommend you check them out. And if you're in the mood for the Flash, etc., you'll come out of seeing that, and you want a bit more Batman, why not check this one out? You will find a link to this in the footnotes below. Go check it out. Our DTV throwback this week is Amityville Dollhouse. A children's dollhouse, which is a miniature of the infamous haunted Long Island house, is given to a young girl where the demonic evil soon comes out to cause more terror. You see, there I have a problem straight away. Did I miss something in this film? But is there any actual link between the dollhouse and the original Amityville house made in the film?
No.
Not at all.
No.
It's just the
not a
fact that
single reference.
it's like it looks like the Amityville house, so therefore it must be possessed, basically.
Well, there's the possibility that it was once made and kept at the house or whatever, and it's come from there, but that is not explored at all in the film itself.
No.
Whether that was something that was in an earlier draft of the script or whatever, and they, for whatever reason, they didn't include it. But no, they don't even say the word Amityville.
Sorry, you think there was an earlier draft to the script? My God. Here's the bit that sort of really bounced me out of the film, though. When the dad finds the dollhouse in the shed, there's an old. The story is, guys. So, the dad has renovated this house or built it on this ground and used the old fireplace as the sort of standing point. And there was an old shed which he decided to keep at the side. And it finally goes into.
He never looked in it.
Never looked in it before. Yeah, I had to sort of use a bolt cutters to get into it. Finds the dollhouse, right, under a tarpaulin and that, and he goes, "Cool." Takes that into the house, and of course, as he removes it, it reveals a big cutout from a newspaper, an old newspaper, which says, sort of house burnt down. Lunatic dad? No, deranged. That's it. Deranged father blamed for arson or something like that. And it's there on the wall. So, putting the timeline together for this, the house has been burnt down.
Yeah.
And after that, someone's decided to take a newspaper clipping about the house burning down and put it on the wall inside the shed. Why?
Yeah.
Why? I'm looking at it. Who the hell?
It's reasons.
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 Yeah. Because it's money playing. But anyway.
Because the movie can't happen without it.
I suppose it needs a bit. It's trying to sort of gear us up.
If they haven't got time, they haven't got the time or the money for the character to go on an investigation and end up at a library looking at microfiche.
Indeed.
To then find that
Which is
article.
what we want.
So they said, you know what? We're just going to
shortcut.
put it there, and then the camera can linger on it, and everybody knows where we stand.
And hopefully, nobody sort of tries to work out why it's there.
It's a movie called Amityville Dollhouse.
I know.
I mean, come on.
So I know. And there is a bit of schlocky fun to be had here. I was actually quite reminded of the film House at times with the makeup design of the kid's dead dad and stuff like that. I thought that was actually quite good. It does sort of like borrow a little bit from Amityville 2, I believe, when the new wife starts having hots for her stepson.
Yeah.
Which is kind of bizarre. There's a lengthy sex scene earlier on as well where she's looking at the photo and the photo keeps changing.
I think that's quite effective.
I thought it was. I thought that was quite good, actually. I quite like that bit. The kids are like. The trouble is, it's such a dysfunctional family. If they were any more likable, they'd have figured out what's going on and pissed off a long time ago. But because they don't talk to each other, it's like takes some ages to figure out what's happening.
The bit that got me was when the son's girlfriend gets set on fire.
Oh yeah.
and he can't hear the screaming because he's making margaritas in a blender. And I was just pissing myself laughing, to be fair. I mean, it's not, it is what it is. It's not going to win any Oscars, like you said, with the name Amityville Doll's House, it's just going to be schlock. And, and the effects at the end with the supposed, were the demons or?
Yeah, something like that.
Basically demons, yeah.
So, they were terrible, to be fair. But some of the makeup was, like the burn effects on the makeup, I thought was really good on the girlfriend and stuff. But it is what it is, you know what you're getting with a title like that. I mean, was not one of them where it was a haunted lamp instead as well?
It's interesting you say that. So that's where, that was the fourth one, and that was basically the that's the theme that a lot of these sort of later Amityville movies, including this one, use. So it was like a haunted lamp, then it was a clock, then it was a mirror.
So are these like things which used to belong in the Amityville house and now being...
Yeah, that's the way it sort of set out originally. And the funny thing was, I was reading about the cover art for this in the UK. Apparently the cover is imagery from Amityville 4. It like shows the lamp and stuff. It doesn't actually relate necessarily to this film. I never picked up on it. I don't think it really matters. I think it looks fine. But apparently that's the whole thing. It is that cold cursed object kind of thing. Because once you got past a certain point, they were just sort of the budgets were a lot lower. So rather than trying to film at the actual property or a replica of it or whatever, the easiest thing is to just go somewhere else and just use the name Amityville, isn't it? So that's the sort of DTV. It's funny, these are a bit like what the Hellraiser films became. The sort of the latter Hellraiser films were kind of like, oh, we're just going to make a story. We're just going to throw the Cenobites in just for a couple of minutes, and we're going to call it Hellraiser and kind of package it off, and that's it. And that's kind of what they did with these Amityville movies before that. It was just like, they did 3 theatrical films. Then there was the TV movie, which was the 4th one, and then like this series of DTV stuff, of which this was because I wasn't sure how official this one was, you see. Because there's loads of, we've had this kind of resurgence of films of Amityville, for all these unofficial Amityville, this, that, and the other, that are not part of the franchise. So I wanted to see what was official, and this is the 8th in the sort of the last in the original run of Amityville films before the Ryan Reynolds remake. And then there was another one a couple of years ago with Bella Thorne, which I haven't seen yet, but that's set in a world where the Amityville movies are movies. So that was set in like a real, it's like meta one, which I haven't seen yet, but this one was the sort of tail end, and I guess it's a natural sort of end point for the original run, for it to be a film with such a sort of a silly concept, I think. But I like it.
Did you guys see the Ryan Reynolds one?
Yeah, I did. I've got it actually.
There's a bit in that which is like pure, which I just think is hilarious, where he sort of like wakes up and he sees in the corner of his room like a hanging corpse, and he's like, like that, and his wife wakes up and goes, "What's wrong?" And he goes, "Nothing," and goes back to sleep. But the other thing about this film, which I thought was quite funny, is that the last like 5 minutes is just explosions. And
God! How many times does that house blow up?
It's like Beavis and Butthead, watching it. It's like fire.
I'd say, well, what it reminded me of, David Gordon Green's Halloween, because at the end of that film, there's the doll's house, and that's where the fire starts. So you got the doll's house burning, but then you've got the main house burning. and it's basically exactly the same as in this, except in this one both of them explode. But the I just thought that was quite curious. But
It's quite amusing.
But I really like this. I saw it when it came out, and it's kind of one of those. It's so much of the time, you know. The fact that a film called Amityville Dollhouse, you know, it still seems crazy to me that was a title that got made into a movie. But I think it does work, although it's not got the reference. I'm not a big Amityville movies fan, so therefore I didn't really pick up on necessarily all.
There's not a lot you can do with
lack of
Amityville,
connection,
really. You know.
No, but what?
You know, unless you're going to sort of go into the background as to why it's haunted or anything like that, which you know, so there's not really a lot you can do. It's just a house that's possessed, you know.
Yeah.
But
I think the doll stuff works. I think the doll's house itself is really well made.
It's pretty well done.
It's a great prop, and the Amityville house, which is one of the great assets of the series, which obviously wasn't used so much in so much late film. At least it's present in a form in this. You know, it's a model form, but it's present, and the house looks amazing. It's got those eye, like, with, you know, the attic windows that look like eyes, which is a real what again, I was looking into. It's a Dutch colonial house. I was looking into it. It's actually called 112 Ocean Avenue in Amityville, Long Island. And the people who've bought the house, you know, they've tried to get they've tried to get it past its past, you know, to move on because they get too much attention. They've actually got rid of those windows now, so it's got like quite standard like rectangular windows and stuff, which I think is a real shame, because, you know, it's got those windows were so much part of the character. But, you know, it is what it is. But
because that's where was it Ed and Lorraine Warren sort of made their name, isn't it?
I think it was one of their cases.
They wrote the original book about it, you know, the Amityville Horror or whatever, which is long since been debunked, of course. But yeah, that was the sort of starting point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
I thought it was all real.
Oh, sorry to disillusion you. You do know about Santa Claus, right?
No, but there were murders there originally, weren't there? That was what the thing was. There was originally some murders, so it's a murder house, but then it became this haunted house kind of story, and that's kind of what. And then I think, from what I was looking into, Amityville 2 was based on the original murders. Amityville
2 is a lot different, isn't it? Because the first half of it is, you know, the first third of it is the murders, and then it becomes like a courtroom drama about and then an exorcism at the end, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you know, the son kills the family, and then he's like considered to be insane and all that sort of stuff. But, anyway,
but with this film, I will say that I really I liked all the family dynamic stuff. I thought that, you know, they put a lot, because it's a step family, you know, that it's two families coming together.
It's the Brady Bunch.
Yeah, it's a Brady Bunch kind of thing. And the dad is like a sitcom TV dad, so I quite like that about him. And, you know, they've all got their issues and stuff, and I thought the film sort of exploited those, and the evil sort of presence or whatever it was exploited those nicely. The stuff with the zombie like dad, I thought was really good. I say the makeup looks great. The ending, I don't know if they'd watched Wes Craven's New Nightmare, which was around the same time. This was 1996, but the ending of Wes Craven's New Nightmare is very similar. You know, it's that whole kind of
going into his nightmare dimensions,
going into the nightmare world, and then having to battle him in that domain kind of thing. And they do the same thing here, but they dive into the fireplace, and then you've got the demons that they see. Apparently, they didn't have any money, so it's like whatever bits they had lying around in the effects shop, and they just sort of stuck them all together, which is why they call it, they sort of wobble around a little bit, and they don't really look that effective. I could have done without that. I think that the film didn't really need that bit, but I thought everything else worked really nicely. All the stuff with the fireplace, and the all the stuff, and like you say, the burn. Lisa Robin Kelly, who died actually a few years ago, very sadly, but
Just want to mention a couple of other things. I don't know how you guys watch this. I watch it with my headphones on, and throughout the whole film, you've got this sort of intermittent buzz of a fly coming in and out of your ears. It's really, really horrible. You didn't get that?
No, I didn't get that.
Oh, crumbs. Yeah. No, it's just.
I did like the fact that it was in widescreen. I'd not seen it in widescreen before, so that was I believe now I'm not sure if they've actually put it out in the States, but at the end of the film on Prime, which is where we saw it, the Vinegar Syndrome logo comes up.
All right.
So I'm not sure if this is a version that's currently on Blu-ray in the States. But that seems to be the source. Okay.
The other bit I must admit I did like was the animated voodoo doll.
Yeah, I see. Other people thought that was a bit silly, but I actually think it's a little bit silly, but I like it. I thought it was a good little sequence.
I thought they did quite a good job of it looks quite innocuous, but then all of a sudden when it sits up, it's got like a slightly evil, the way they've sort of stitched the eyes and everything.
Yeah, I think it looked good.
Did a really good job of oh no, it's the evil version. But yeah, that was quite an effective sequence. So yeah, it's schlocky, it's stupid, but it's also very entertaining.
And also you got to take into account. I mean, most of the film takes place in this house in a very isolated environment. There's like one or two scenes that take place elsewhere, but it doesn't feel like really, really cheap. I think it feels like compared to some of the stuff we watch now, like Incantation, which has a similar kind of isolated house setting. I thought it felt like a real movie, and that's something I do miss from that you see in these like 90s DTV movies that the newer ones just don't really have. It's got that real. It still feels like a proper film, even when it's like a cheap as chips sort of B movie. Yeah. So yeah, I thought that added to its charm for me.
Yeah, cool. Well, we don't score the throwbacks, but we do recommend you go check them out. You'll find this one on Amazon Prime. And it is, as Richard mentioned earlier, it's in a good print. It's in widescreen. Listen to it on headphones. See if you can hear the buzzing, the buzzing of the fly, and see if you get creeped out by it like I did.
In the Amityville Horror, wasn't there the flies actually, or the bees in the room or something? Maybe that.
But there you go. And that is the end of this week's show. So thanks for listening. Thanks to Rich and Steve for checking out these films. I am kicking myself I didn't get to see Pinball. Just like
Go watch it.
A couple of weeks ago when I missed, what was that one I missed a couple of weeks ago, which turned out to be really good as well. Never mind. But yes, do check these out, especially Pinball and She Came from the Woods and Cerebrum. We certainly enjoyed those. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time.
Thank you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.